You're listening to The Instant Leader, where leadership isn't about titles, it's about the influence we create through our actions. I'm Andy Lee, coach and founder of The Instant Leader. Each episode, I sit down with leaders from all walks of life to unpack honest stories, practical tactics, and the small, everyday behaviors that build real impact. If you want to grow your influence at work and beyond without waiting for permission, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. In this episode, we're joined by Jordo Mederich, a visionary entrepreneur, husband and father of four, who's built and scaled multiple companies with purpose and grit. Jordo shares his journey from humble beginnings as a pastor's kid, leading high-growth businesses, revealing honest insights on leadership, self-awareness, and the power of recurring revenue. We delve into overcoming rejection, building teams with trust and grace, and the true meaning of servant leadership. If you're ready for a dose of wisdom, practical advice, and inspiring stories that challenge how you think about success and growth, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. Hey, Jordo, welcome to the Instant Leader podcast. It's such an honor to have you here. I've known you for several years. I think we've collaborated together on a couple of projects. I actually came close to working for/with you at one point. But you decided I wasn't good enough. So
I thought actually you were too good. You were beyond our abilities at the time.
So could you give a little bit of a kind of a bio, Jordan, like a bit of background and to like the key highlights of your career and what's led you to where you are right now?
Yeah. Well, I'd say most importantly is I'm a husband and father to four kids under the age of 10. That's really where I spend most of my time, and it's what I build for. And there's that earthly element. There's also an eternal element that I believe in and build for. So that's going to resound throughout. Really, the ethos of my beliefs and my structures and my identity is not really rooted in this world. It's none of this is mine to own. It's just monopoly money to play with while we're here. But to build for a greater impact here and beyond. But yeah, really my story, the quick version of it, I'm a pastor's kid. My mom was a teacher, dad was a pastor, so very humble beginnings, financially speaking. We were a family of seven. And so, I learned very early, my parents did awesome. Like, we have a great relationship, but there are some scarcity elements that still ring true for me today, even as a leader of growing new companies. And I think almost everything I do, there is an element of scarcity and loss, which we'll, I'm sure, dive into. That there's pros and cons to that element. But that scarcity really taught me that if you want more in life, if you want to be able to do more, you have to become more, and you have to push for more, and you have to risk more. And so I kind of had a rich dad, poor dad kind of conversation going on, where my best friend, growing up, he was like an only child, and they did very well. He was an entrepreneur. His dad was an entrepreneur. So it showed me that you can order soda when you go out to eat, if you have the resources to do it. But on the other side, we never did that. It's like, you share a Happy Meal kind of thing versus like, hey, we're going to go on a cruise and go do all these extravagant things. So living two different versions of that life led me up to the point where I knew I was going to do some great things to hopefully make an impact in the world, but also to have more optionality. So I've launched multiple companies. One of my biggest was a video production company that ended up launching me into the high ticket affiliate marketing space, which at the time, I didn't even know what an opt-in page was. I didn't know what a low ticket offer was. I was just building video assets for a company. And they're like, hey, we've got this SLO with 2 OTOs and a bump. We need a VSL for the low ticket. Step one of the essential model. I'm like, guys, like, you're talking to some dude who's growing, like, okay, I have no idea what you're talking about. So it was trial by fire to learn all of that, but learned it very quickly. It was really funny. One of my favorite little quips is when I was running a video production company, but the net wasn't all that great. I was freshly married in college, pretty much broke as a joke. And so I got my first gig, which was, they paid me $8,000 a month, which was life-changing money at that stage. I was probably 23 or 24 or something like that. And we celebrated at Ruby Tuesdays. Like, that was my version of celebrating, was going to eat at Ruby Tuesday, was like fancy, right? Anyway, just a funny quip to say that, like, just things continued to progress from there. Worked my absolute butt off. and then help these companies to scale, and then started launching my own companies. Most recently, I exited a sales funnel platform last year. And then now I've launched into my current company, which is Revatto, which we do done for you retention. So failed payment recovery, churn reduction, cancellation deflection. And essentially, we focus on keeping customers on subscription as long as possible for information and SaaS companies. And so we're growing quick. At this stage, we're growing 20% month over month. So in the last 5 months, here at the point of recording, we will have doubled in 5 months.
Wow.
And we're just growing organically. We have our own whole slew of challenges and up levels that we need to make, but we think we're on the right track to kind of build something very unique and very cool.
Wow. That's some journey that you've been on, Jordo, all the way from the beginning. I'd like to kind of go back to the early stage. I doubt that you knew you were going to be here when you were in your early 20s. Um, did you always have in mind to be an entrepreneur?
Hmm. No, I think most entrepreneurs would say that, yeah, I knew I was going to do this the whole time. I always knew I wanted to build things. I'm more the visionary creative type. So I love creating something new and bringing it out to the world and then starting to see that blossom, really to validate an idea out in the market. And so like that's come from a lot of things. Like I created a documentary film about addiction that ended up winning a bunch of awards, and it's still live 9 years later on Amazon Prime. But then I never really wanted to build. I didn't want to be a filmmaker, right? That wasn't that. There's like a portion of you that does that, but it's like, no, I just wanted to make this movie. Or if I was launching a particular business, it's like, um, I did one that was kind of a novelty sticker company. I didn't want to be like the owner of a sticker company. I just wanted to build something cool that my friends would laugh at, right? Um, so if I adopted the identity of being a founder and an entrepreneur far sooner, I'd probably be a lot more successful. But I don't want to ever be pigeonholed into what being an entrepreneur means, because adopting that identity means you naturally circumvent and sacrifice things that really matter to me, which is like family and not working 18-hour days. And like, dude, I don't care. I have no billion-dollar dreams by any stretch. And so I'm sure by now all the entrepreneurs have turned this episode off. But I'm like, man, there comes a point in time where it's like, even right now, I don't really need to work. In fact, the first entire year of my current company, I didn't make a penny, right? So when you don't need to work because you reach a particular level where it's like all of your costs are covered for essentially the rest of your life or whatever, you have some optionality there. And so you can continue to sacrifice things, right? Everyone has to just pick what's important to them. But I knew
Yeah.
that I still tell people that I'm kind of an entrepreneur and a founder because I like to brag about that it's like, hey, this was my idea and look at it. It's kind of cool, right? There's that side of it. But ultimately, I've never wanted to sacrifice my family, certainly. And like, I know on my deathbed, my kids will never say that they wish that they had more time for me, ever. In fact,
Yeah.
right now, they're always like, go to work, just go, just like go do something else. They're kicking me away. So I've architected my businesses and my life and my cash flow and all of that to spend time on doing things that are most important. Because I think, as a final thought here, it's like we sometimes sell out to our business and we get hired by someone else. I don't know who to attribute this to. That we get hired by our business versus us hiring our business. And that idea of like, if you're going to hire your business, you're going to look at that differently, where that thing had better serve you and it had better make you feel energized and woken up and loving what you do most of the time. You're never going to love it all the time, but most of the time. And it should give you the flexibility to do the things you really want to do. If you're being hired, I think of a lot of entrepreneurs that are hired by their business. And it means that you are clocking in and clocking out to an entity that has no soul and is renting your energy for dollars, essentially. So that buyer seller mentality, I think, is the big shift that I have always wanted to make.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I see that, Jordo. That idea that people are chasing this dream and they're building bigger and they want better, but to what end? Right?
Right.
That's the thing. And it seems very clear with you, Jordo, that you do have a clear end and you understand the businesses that you've built, the vehicles that you've built are tools and a means to an end and not the end itself. How did you discover that? Like, because that kind of anchors then all your big and small decisions with business.
Mm.
Like, was that something that along the way you started to kind of become more self-aware? Did it happen right at the beginning before you even took any action? You thought, right, here are my values. Here are my here's my North Star. How did that play out for you?
I think building certainly growing up being more value based than like entrepreneurially minded gives you a strong sense of values that, provided that you continue those values throughout your adulthood, um, I believe that they will end up serving you far better than. Uh, that's such a good question. I think we evolve so much, and I think about like maybe it was one tiny interaction that I had with like my friend's dad, where he's like, "Hey, we're gonna go on a cruise. Do you want to go with us?" And that like unlocked this level, which is that there's no chance that I'm going to be able to, and he's spending time with his family and he's doing all the things that I'm like, I want to do that. I want to do that. Right. Um, and even, my dad being a pastor, I always call pastors because he was not only a pastor, he was a church planter. So he went around building churches from scratch and then passing that church off when he was successful to someone else and then starting from scratch again. And he did that 3 times throughout our life. And so he's like an entrepreneur that never got paid. You don't get an exit from that. You don't get money from that. And you're also broke the whole time because you're sacrificing 100% of your entire life to bring that vision to life. So it's like 2 different versions of entrepreneurship, and both are good. And both have, I think, a particular calling, but I kind of gravitated towards the sense of, man, if I can provide a life that is that version, it's like you can build whatever you want, and if it's valuable enough, people will pay you for it. And then when they pay you for it, you can build that into recurring revenue. Which, by the way, is like, I'm fully convinced, and I will die on this hill. The purest form of business, period, is a recurring business. One-time sale businesses are not businesses. They are a house of cards in the deepest, most formative way possible. If you don't have recurring revenue and if all of your bills are not like paid for on day one, you don't have a company. You have a house of cards. And so you can shift that direction. And I know I'll get some heat for that, but the only businesses are recurring. So I knew that if you could build cash flow, build some recurring, it's like, then you can go take a week off you could take 2 weeks off if you want to. And you can, not only provide for like your direct family, but also like I've been blessed enough. I was able to pay off my parents' mortgage, and when maybe my siblings were in trouble, I could help them out, or I could hire on, new people, to help me to build these visions and to take these risks, with me. And so I think that it's like, there might be one experience that you have as a kid that creates you into the leader that you're going to be later on. And I'm convinced even this conversation, there could be one unlock in your head that's like, maybe I don't really believe what I believe. And maybe there's a new version of me emerging. And it's like these tiny moments kind of unlock these tiny padlocks. I don't believe it's a big safe that unlocks and you go from being an employee to an entrepreneur. That's not the case. It's like a million different padlocks in your head that each one unlocks and they stack on top of each other. And at a
Yeah.
certain point, you evolve into that. But that's
Yeah.
probably not even answering your question, but it was really fun to talk about. I'll put it that way.
I think it did, and then some. I love that analogy you gave at the end, the padlocks and, all kind of unlocking. However, that isn't necessarily a given to everybody, because you have to be of a certain disposition, like an open-mindedness to see that, to be open to be unlocked or to reveal extra
Yeah.
layers, right? And so you had that. Like, were you conscious of it? Like, what was your kind of approach to
I
continue to
think you're
learn
right
it?
on, but there's an openness that you need. You also need to develop that openness. I mean, I think I'm probably leaning on the side that entrepreneurs are born, not made. And so that intuition and that skill set, the ability to pursue that, you kind of need to be born with. But it comes with skill sets, not just about making money. It's curiosity and being inquisitive and being a risk taker. There's nothing but risk in being an entrepreneur and a leader. And like, you're held to a certain standard that any single little chink in the armor or like a weak link in the chain can break and topple your entire empire or even your identity as a leader. So How many times have we seen that happen with pastors having one stumbling block, and it destroys an entire organization? Some of them are more egregious than others, but even the small ones can be like, you do one thing wrong and you're out of power, even though you've done 99.9 repeated amount of the things right. And so I think I think everyone has an entrepreneurial bone in their body that can be explored and unlocked. Um, but the skill set is I call it the curious grandpa, which is like it's kind of this like it's kind of like this like old man, and he's like looking over there and he's wondering like, hey, what is that over there? Like, and I think a lot of people question that. It's like, oh, what is it like to be rich? And to see what that's like. And like the curious grandpa is going to be like the weirdo that's going to walk that direction and go see what's over there. And he might like it. It also might stink really bad. So the people who don't end up becoming entrepreneurs, they do that. They look and they're like, I think that's going to be bad. I'm going to stay away from it, even though that eliminates the possibility that that could be really good. So that's
Yeah.
what trapped people, I think, in comfort and being an employee for life and going to school and racking up hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and staying there for the rest of your life. Is that it's that whole, I don't think that's going to be good. Therefore, I'm going to just do what I know is comfortable and safe. So
Yeah.
I think there is an openness to it that's required.
Yeah. Yeah. Agree. Oh, that's great. Jordo, you mentioned that you actually started to receive a big paycheck in your early 20s here. Um, Now, to get to that position, even at such an early age, you would have had a level of maturity, a level of self confidence, and I would say certain leadership traits.
Mm.
Um, what do you what do you think would be some of those traits that you had back then? And maybe you didn't know you had them back then. Maybe upon reflection, you realized, oh yeah, that was something that I didn't know I had, them, but I was actually exhibiting to get to that relative position of success back then.
Yes, I think there's one word and it's sales. So like when I was growing up, I was 8 years old and I started learning like some magic tricks and stuff because I love performing and all that. And then from the ages of 8 to 16, I was doing touring magic shows, like full on corporate events and like big school assemblies, and all the way down to like when I was younger doing birthday parties and library shows. But to get those gigs, and I was 8 years old making $50 a show, which like was life changing for me. That was like $1 billion in my book. Being a broke, 8 year old, which I just reinvested back into better magic tricks to go do better shows, and I just compounded it. So um, sales is the absolute number one skill set, no matter what. And I think people are afraid of the concept of sales because they think it means manipulation. But I'd say step that down and say, at worst, it's persuasion. That's at worst. Good sales is just persuasion. But the best, purest form of that is guiding people to what they already want in the first place. If someone's walking into a car dealership, they're not doing it for fun or that they want tacos. No, they want a dang car. So they're expelled and pushed away by that hardcore manipulation and those tactics. Like I guess the Andy that should not be named, the Andy Elliott's of the world that like push and like force you to make a decision. That is manipulation, right? That's not sales. That is pressure. And I think it's completely unethical. If it's not illegal, it should be illegal. And most people regret buying things from those types of tactics. But um, at very worst being persuasion, and at best being a guide to that. I knew growing up, it's like I have this product, which was like magic shows and performing, and I did balloon animals and all that kind of stuff. And I knew these libraries, they have to put on events. Schools have budgets for assemblies, corporate, big corporate structures or whatever. They have to pay for like motivational speakers. I know that they have to do it. So I knew all I have to do is introduce myself as a viable option, and chances are they're going to give me a shot. And when they do, and they have a good experience, they're going to do it again and again, which thus creates recurring revenue, right? This ongoing business relationship over time. So learning that very young meant that by the time I got my first like real entrepreneurial, like incredibly large paycheck, at the time, which again, I look back and laugh, but at the time it was like, holy cow, this is like, I'm set. Like, it's funny to
Yeah.
look back. Um, but with that, knowing that you've already built a skill set of being fairly fearless against rejection, because you get rejected so many times when you're selling, which again is just guiding. So by that point, I knew if I could just put my best foot forward and prove myself first, which is what I did. I did this big 2-week long project for them. They were blown away. They're like, hey, I want you to cancel all of your other jobs, all your other clients, wind down your production company and just work for us. That's when they knew. It's like I had positioned myself in a way that no one could compete with what it was that I was providing. So sometimes just the evidence and the results that you bring is the proof that your salesmanship is not a lie, right? So
Yeah.
that, I think it's a big part of it. Is sales is just the self belief that someone wants something and you can help them to get it. That's sales.
Yeah. Yeah. And another way of saying that is influence. I mean, that's essentially what
Yeah.
it is. And if you're leading somebody well, you're influencing them well. And as you said, you're guiding them to something that they already wanted. And you've clearly outlined the difference between good and bad, the unethical, borderline illegal, part of sales, which has given that whole term such a bad name over the years. You mentioned the skill set of being fearless, and I was going to touch on that as you talked about sales. So, because how did you overcome that fear? And if you ever did get rejected, how did you deal with that? Because sometimes that feeling can override your feeling of wanting to pursue the
Uh,
goal. Did you ever
uh,
have doubts? Did your emotions ever kind of get in the way? And
Boy, I think most people avoid rejection before it even happens, or before it's even a reality, or where rejection could even happen. So if like you're not shooting your shot, you're guaranteed not to get rejected. Congrats. Like you're also 100% not going to get what you want. If you at least shoot the shot and rejection is a possibility, not even a probability, but a possibility, um, you stand to potentially gain what it is so I think probably the best in the world, and I forget who to attribute all these thoughts to, but one thing that I learned, I think fairly early, is the nature of like how many no's you need to get to a yes. And we hear that grip, but that's been going around for 50 years, right? So whoever claims it now, it's probably they got it from someone else. But how many no's do you need to get to a yes? So say that, I don't know, maybe someone's like trying to date and you need to swipe right or left or whatever it is. I've never had anyway, whatever swiping direction it is, you swipe 20 times to maybe get one conversation. Then you need 10 conversations to get a date, and you need 3 dates to get someone who's going to like date you longer term. You have a law of averages there, and okay, then I'm going to chase the rejections. I'm going to chase the no's to get them out of the way, which by the way, if you adopt that, which I think being fearless is just rejecting rejection as like a failure point. It's not a failure at all. It's like I'm predicting that I'm going to get rejected. I'm kind of hoping, because then it's out of the way and I know I'm getting closer to a yes. But what you're almost going to find is that until you've proven a particular model, if you're starting anything new, you might think, yeah, I need 20 swipes. I need 10 conversations. I need 3 dates to find one person. You might on your very first shot get exactly what it was that you were looking for. And that is not only a possibility, it's a probability, because, well, we always think worst case scenario, but it could be best case scenario for you. So fearless doesn't mean that you have doubts. I think the one phrase that I may have coined, and I'll put it in a book pretending that I coined it, but I might have heard it from somewhere else. But I always say is you want to reject doubt, but embrace uncertainty. So that's what we're talking about, being fearless. Reject doubt and embrace uncertainty. If I'm saying, I know that doubt will come, or whatever, it's a possibility to come, doubt is going to keep you from doing anything. Uncertainty is like, I don't know what the outcome is, but it could be good. That's an opportunity. And so I can embrace, I can accept uncertainty. I'm unclear. But doubt is saying, I don't think this will happen. Go back to Curious Grandpa. He's looking over there and he's like, hey, that looks kind of cool. I don't think that's going to work well for me. That is uncertainty. Or that is doubt. When I go over there and say, I'm not sure, I'm uncertain, but I'm going to go find out what's over there. It could be good or bad. So I think I don't think anyone's fearless. I think the best and the very top in the world. I think presidents. I think Elon Musk. I think any entrepreneur. Maybe I'm not sure, but maybe even Andy Lee has fear. I doubt it, but maybe most entrepreneurs are going to have some fear, but that fear is defined differently when you are willing to embrace uncertainty through it.
Yeah, yeah, 100% Jordo. Yep. And yet the rumors are true. I do have fears as well. Uh, the
No, come
as hard as it is to believe, uh,
on.
the it's this. It's about not taking it personally as well, right? Because that's where the fear comes from. The fear of rejection is like the fear of rejecting, of you being rejected. It hits
Yeah.
hard when people take it personally. They think they're rejecting me versus my idea or the offer, the business, the magic show
Ooh.
proposition.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a pretty brutal, very fresh wound example right now. Okay. So right before we recorded this session, we had a client that we just jumped onto a call. By the way, we've been in business since like early 2024. We had 16 months of zero churn, like not a single client left in 16 months, which is like, it's extremely rare. There's a lot of reasons for that, but we're just really good at serving people well and helping them win. Um, but then just recently, we started to see some edge cases where rejection is sometimes not at all within your control. In this particular example, we have someone who is going to churn out, kind of churn. They're testing another thing because their CEO wants to prove that it's better or whatever. So like we might win them back, right? But they had a particular benchmark that we beat. We beat their expectations by 20%, and we're already on pace to beat it by over 100%, meaning that we'd be doubling their past results. And in our model, we're commission only, so um, we're making them so much more money in their company than they were ever making before doing this, but they still are rejecting us. Like, and we just got off this call. We gave them all the data saying like, here's the exact numbers. Do you refute the numbers? They're like, no, the numbers are great. We still have to do this because it's more maybe political or red tapey than things that we can even understand or know about, right? My hope is that we're going to win them back because we went above and beyond to get them great results. But that's rejection, Andy. That's rejection
Yeah.
that we can't thwart, we can't predict, we can't even control because we've done everything in our power to do well. My heart breaks for like single moms and dads who end up getting like a divorce or breaking apart from their spouse or partner or whatever when the other person went insane, right? They went nuts. And some people do that. They crack, they break. It's not within that person's control. They stayed consistent. They did everything right. And still they get rejected or they get divorce papers or getting fired from a job when you're overperforming, or even at a lesser scale, you get like a performance review. It's a 4 out of 5 instead of a 5. And they're like, why did I get a 4? Well, because we never give 5s. There's all these stupid rules to the universe and to like relationships and business. And too often we assign rejection far too often, right? Or assign that rejection has more value than it does. Rejection has no value over your life because you can control what you can control. Rejection in a certain way is inevitable. So reduce its power. My friend Seth Ellsworth talks about all this time. He's like, when you're struggling with this issue of rejection, maybe you've swiped right 100 times and you've gotten 0 dates through the whole thing. The question that he asks, which I love, is he always says, do you want to feel big in this moment or do you want to feel small? So when you get rejected, when you lose a client, when you lose a sale, when your company fails, by the way, ask every successful entrepreneur how many failures they've had in the wake of one success. They're going to
Yeah.
get a 2-hour-long monologue about how many failures they had to lead up to that. Okay, there's rejection for you. But in this moment of rejection, do you want to feel big or do you want to feel small? If I want to feel small, I'm going to lose to rejection. So I choose, I want to feel big. How can I feel big? Well, I can grow out of it or I can minimize the problem. It's really hard to grow out of it because that's an identity shift. But I can reduce the size of the problem and say it's powerless over me, right? I think about that with um, you know, negative or demonic energies where I'm like, things in life, regardless of your belief structure or any of those things, there are negative forces, call it whatever you want, that can and will impact your life. And you can decide to feel small and allow those things equal to rejection or some thing in the universe or whatever, call it what you want. Something happens that's a negative force or energy in your life. you can give that thing power by deciding to stay small. And again, if you don't want it to beat you, you have to grow grow up in identity. It takes longer and it's a lot more work, or you can reduce the value or the power that the thing has over your life. So in almost anything, when you'll often see, hopefully people, the far side of this is narcissism, but when you see someone who like you feel like is egotistical and you get to know them and then you find out that you really like them, people do that to me all the time. They think I'm like one of like, anyway, without the use of their colorful language, they think that I'm like super cocky and egotistical. Then they get to know me and they're like, you're like one of the nicest, most humble guy or whatever. Like, you're not what I expected you to be. Well, that's because people that come off as that, but they're not really that, they have rejected and minimized what other negative things have over their life. It's not that they're like so great about themselves, is that they don't have chains. They're not, nothing is like behind them with like big heavy weights and baggage pulling them down. They've rejected that and said, no, I don't feel like I'm not greater than I am. I just am who I am. I am the identity that I am, but I'm not dragged by 30,000 pounds of weight behind me. So, gosh, dude, I am not answering probably any of your questions in the
Oh, I
succinct
know.
way.
I
Yes, should,
absolutely
but
no. I think you
really,
are. No, I think you are. So much gold in there, Jordan. I really appreciate all of that. I'm going to try and pick a couple of things out there, but the latest thing you just said is fascinating. So, from a distance, people could say that you're. It's almost they're confusing ego and
right.
arrogance with a sense of freedom of self-expression or a pure confidence in your own value, right? So that you're not actually affected by things on the outside.
Mm.
It's funny how that can be confused from a distance, isn't it?
I think I'm going to butcher it, but Hormozy has that thing about like, what is confidence? It's not like reading affirmations in the mirror. It's like building irrefutable evidence that you are who you say you are. So confidence is evidence. Actually, I didn't butcher that. That was pretty much like right on.
I think
So
so. Yeah, I think it's pretty
that was
accurate.
pretty good. I'm confident in that quote. Okay, but irrefutable evidence. It doesn't come from like puffing up our chest. Those are narcissists, the ones that are like fraudulently not the identity. It's like the crypto bros who are all broke, but they're trying to pump up a coin to dump it, or the entrepreneurs who are like posting income screenshots that were based on some launch of their client's client, and they're taking like entrepreneurial creative freedom to claim that it was they had any like massive role to do it, or someone sells $1 million house and gets a 2 Comma Club award or whatever. Like we have all these quips in the, especially the marketing, leadership, entrepreneurial space, because we know that that is like, it's the bravado. It is the false inflation of self, where when you are who you say you are, that's natural confidence that I think it's probably lesser so that people would identify you as being egotistical. I think when you're growing up into a new identity, there can be some fictionalization that helps you to become that person because you're stretching. And I always go back to like the giant king crab, right? That like when they're about to grow, they have to grow or they will die. By the way, this is the same with us. And they have to shed their shell in this painful, molting, extreme experience. And they have to rip this out. And at that moment, they become extremely vulnerable. And then that old shell falls off. And for hours or days, they're still like forming this hardness around this new identity. And so and any predator can come along and crush them at that time. And that's like when don't kick a man when they're down. It's when they're down and when they need to be like protected in a safe ecosystem. And so a king crab will hide under a rock and stay protected there for a bit, even starving itself like during that time, if it needs to just like stay alive. But it's sacrificing itself. It's saying short-term pain for this ultimate new growth of identity. But boy, yeah, I think you'll land at a point of stasis. The Dunning-Kruger effect plays a lot into this as well. You see it all the time. It's like that peak of Mount Stupid when people rise to a particular confidence too early without the
Yeah,
evidence to back it up. They're like,
yeah,
and then that's when you seem like, well, let's sit here and watch. I mean, we've seen that recently with some uh, very bravado centered entrepreneurs just getting nailed either by SEC or FTC or getting shut down or whatever. And I don't celebrate those losses at all. But we all kind of sit back and watch and say, like, you can sense when it's genuine confidence backed by evidence versus that's bravado. It's self-serving and it's not the growth to a new identity. It's just a false identity overall.
yeah, yeah. That's good. So, Jordo, I want to move into the, obviously, as you started to grow, you're going to need to start building team.
Ah,
But what would you say to somebody who's like maybe younger on the journey in this context of confidence, right? Confidence is kind of doing what you say you're going to do, whether that's for yourself or for someone else. So you're starting to believe your own word, right? That like you're going to grow confidence in yourself because, like, oh, I committed to saying I'm going to do something and I did it. Um, that sounds like that grows the more you do that thing. But earlier on, the tasks are smaller, the projects are smaller, the goals are smaller. So
yeah.
is it a case of you just kind of need time? Like for you, you started at the age of 8. That's fan.
Uh,
That I mean, that's earlier. Like for others, it might not be so young. Is it a time thing? Could they?
mm.
Could that be accelerated?
Team has always been a tough one for me. And I think more like true entrepreneurial types, they know that team is like the secret to success. And it took me way too long to learn that. When you're small or like you're a solopreneur, the absolute trap, I promise you this, the number one trap is your mindset around hiring people and good talent. And I've fallen into that pit far more times than I can count. And that's why something stays small and never reaches its full potential is the lack of diversity of opinions or skill sets or thinking you can do everything by yourself. Here's the thing. If you decide to not lean into team building and culture building, which is like one of the absolute most core facets of being a leader of an organization, if you don't lean into that as soon as it realistically makes sense to do so, the more success you have, the more trapped you are by your own device. And you grow a company to be very successful as a solopreneur, you are guaranteed burnout. You are guaranteed no breaks. You're guaranteed that every fire is going to come directly to you. And every tiny thing, even if it's a $2 an hour task, you're still stuck doing that stuff. That's the trap that you think is is going to help you to make more money or to keep more of your net margins. And it's the trap that will keep you stuck forever. So for younger or maybe up and coming entrepreneurs, team is critical. And I'll tell you this, and I'm not just saying it because I know you, Andy, or that it's what you do. Finding for any entrepreneurs who are more visionary, dude, I was a theater major. Okay. So I'm just revealing that. I don't say that too often. I was a theater major. I'm like super right brain, creative, emotive, visionary. I don't have a left brain cell in my body. The whole left side of my brain is broken. Anything on a CRM or a spreadsheet, I'm like, just shoot me now. I'm not interested. But let me go talk to someone to help them like buy this new thing or whatever. I'll take those all day. Or do the monkey and dance show on a YouTube video or something. Okay. The number one hire, the very first thing that you should be considering if you want true scale and you want true freedom is an intrapreneur operator. So there's like all these systems around that, but it is hiring an Andy Lee. The Andy version of my business, his name is Callum. And he's been with me, gosh, 5 or 6 years by this point. And don't let him watch this or else he's going to demand even more money. I would crumble and would have failed without him or someone like him on my team. In fact, right now he makes more money than I do. I've built it in that way and he knows it. He knows he's making more money than I am and he has since day one because I've built this structure to say I know how critical that is. And man, I am so grateful for the entrepreneur types that can take all the chaos that's in a visionary's brain and bring it to reality and operationalize it and systemize it and solve the small problems and deal with they're like firefighters, man. Operators are firefighters. They're on the front lines dealing with the crap. They're dealing with the first top line. Stuff is going to float up to the founder inevitably, but at least you can deal with the stuff that matters. A good operator is worth not only their weight in gold, even to the point where I'm like, if he makes more money for the rest of time working for me, I'm like, good, all day, take it, because he's solving 10 times the amount of problems for me, right? I would hate my life if I had to do the stuff that he's doing. He, by the way, would hate his life if he was doing what I'm doing. So that's a very that coexistence is, I think
Yeah.
very critical. But as far as team is concerned, yeah, you have to be thinking of those things as early as possible.
So when building a team, you're obviously looking for particular roles to fill that require certain skills, the hard skills, the soft skills. What else are you looking for in the person?
Gosh, I have a lot of room to grow in this area. Hiring is my probably one of my uh gosh. I'm looking really for two things. I think there's like all these quips about that, about like you should look for like aptitude. It's like, what is it? It's like a culture, aptitude, and then skill set, or something along those lines. I think I'd align with some of those models. For me, I want to get along with the person. And so I'm trying to sense, is this person, first of all, trusted and good, that's like the first filter. Why are we even talking about something if you haven't demonstrated your efficiency in doing a particular thing? That's why we're talking. Either through a referral or because we've done some kind of a beta test offering, which, by the way, I do with everybody. Any new person coming in, it's like, I'm kind of vetting you over this time. And I want to know, prove to me that you're valuable enough to keep here and that I want to grow with you. Or that eventually we had one person who joined in as just like a contractor and has now got equity in the company because they've proven themselves as being multifaceted and dedicated to building what it is that we're building within the vision. So I want to get along with them really well. Clearly, the first thing is like you have to be able to do what you're doing and prove that you've done it. But getting along with the person is big. And then this isn't always entirely critical. But I think there's like the boy, this is really unwritten, but this concept of like grace. How graceful can a person be in the face of adversity? Or if I were to say, like, hey, I'm just not having a good day right now, like I just need to log out. Can you just handle all my stuff? And they're like, absolutely, man, I got you. Go take care of yourself. And how often they'll do those types of things for you and you'll do that for them. There's this grace and forgiveness that goes around, like, hey, uh, we have a couple of VAs that help us out with stuff, and they got hit recently by a huge hurricane. All the power went out. So they lost power, lost internet, and we're like, yeah, it's expensive for us to go get them generators and new internet and new laptops and all this stuff for one person to keep going. It's like 3 or 4 months of their salary or whatever it ends up being. But to do those things and to have grace for humanity is at the end of the day what makes you not sell your soul out for your business, right? Because again, if your business is hiring you, then the business is going to determine if people are assets or liabilities. I think all people should be assets that are on your team. And as part of that, you have to have like this subjective human level of grace to understand them best.
Yeah. Yeah. And that it isn't common to hear those words, grace and forgiveness, like in this kind of entrepreneurial setting. And that really is a reflection of your values. Um, but also to be able to develop that kind of culture, it, you as the founder and CEO, like have to exhibit certain traits like humility comes to mind, like
Mm,
because there are some that visionaries can be very almost like a Tasmanian devil, go 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 go, and they're kind of dragging everyone everywhere. And then how do you keep aware of that? How do you manage to do that, and where you're kind of developing, it sounds like, friendships with your
mm,
team, but you're also the person who hires and fires and
mm.
leads the charge.
Yeah, boy, that gets pretty deep. I think it is a mistake to become friends with your coworkers or your employees. I think that's a mistake. um, Unless it's an offsite that's intended for, you know, more connection and culture where the whole company comes together. Because like we're all remote, like almost everyone's remote these days, right? The concept of like, hey man, I'm clocking out, let's go have a beer together, or whatever. That is a severe imbalance. So I think it's not a prerequisite that you must be friends in order to receive grace, right? I think that friendships and getting too close can create an imbalance of favor, right? And so like what I would consider grace is like unearned favor. That's the definition of grace: is unearned favor, right? And that should be spread across whomever deserves that level of grace or what you're willing to give. But yeah, when you're friends with that employee, it's one of the worst things ever. You won't fire them when you need to. You'll keep them on too long. They'll get preferential treatment often, or when things get gross, they get really gross and they get really personal. One of the craziest stories was anyway, the whole thing. One person like betrayed the other, and he was his boss or whatever. Um, and oh no, it was a female, and like he fired her or whatever. But they had like a past together, and so she revealed like a bunch of pictures and sent it to everybody on his camera or on his cell phone and stuff. And like, of course, that's a disgusting, obtuse example here, but it's like there's nothing good can come from like getting too close. It's almost like no business is worth losing over a friendship, and no friendship is worth losing over a business, kind of thing. So like, keep those things clear and separate, I think.
That's a very interesting take. So you personally kind of set limits to the extent of the relationships you'd have with your coworkers, right? In the friendship space.
Every friend I've ever hired was a mistake. I'll put it that way. Like, if you're my friend first and I hire you, it's never gone well, right? Because you're not vetting people based on the outcome or the goal or what the business needs. Because again, I'm hiring the business to do a certain thing. I'm hiring you to help the business too. So I'm being a bad steward of that asset if I'm bringing you in. And then I think the opposite is true. I've been very intentional of not being too close. It doesn't mean that like I hold them at a distance or I'm rude or any of that kind of stuff. It's like we're not going to go on vacation together. Like, and we should avoid doing that. I think everyone should, because then it's almost like when you get too far talking to, maybe things they just get too dirty too quick, and there's no benefit from it at all. Like, you're not going to make more money because you become friends with an employee, right? You're not going to be more successful from that. So
yeah. Wow, great. Now, Jordo, as you bring the team in, and they prove themselves, and then they earn more responsibility. Do you also think about developing the leader inside them, or the existing leadership skills? Like, what would you focus on, if any?
yeah, boy, I love the concept of. I would lean more into it's not my responsibility to develop you as a leader. That's going to be controversial. It's not my responsibility to turn you into a leader. It's my job to give you opportunities to step into that role and to grow into that level of identity. So I'm not going to teach you how to build a team, how to build your own culture. You can extract from what you experience here from me. You should extract that and know like there are some things that work and some things that maybe don't based on your experience. I'm going to give you an opportunity to go build a team underneath you and see how you manage it, right? It's like, here's your KPI, here's your goal and your outcome, the result I need from you. I'm going to give you 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 people underneath you. I'm not going to talk to any of them. And if I do, then there's something very wrong. If I have to interface with your team underneath you, it starts to sound like an MLM, doesn't it? It's very much like an MLM. If I have to go to your downline to go address a problem directly, you are missing the point as a leader, because all problems rise to the leader and it stops with you. And there's a problem if it gets to me, right? So it's been, some people come into the organization with that skill set already. If they haven't, they've never really led a team, giving them that opportunity is a real gift. And you're going to find out quickly within probably a quarter, within 90 days, you're going to know if they have what it takes, because they're either going to cry uncle and call it, or they're gonna thrive and like be like this whole new person that you didn't even know or expect that they had that skill set because they never had the chance to prove it.
Right.
So I think that's the gift you can give your employees, is
Right.
that chance.
So full autonomy in those 90 days.
Yes. I'm again probably gonna catch some fire for that. Full autonomy, but also full access to resources. So you get to build this thing. You are an entrepreneur in this organization. You're not an employee. You are, I want you to pretend that you are the CEO of this bucket in your world. How are you going to make this thrive? Full autonomy, full choice, full selection, but also full access to help or like one-on-one conversations. Like, how do I deal with this issue? How do I solve around it? Full choice. And I'm going to know, like, if the house catches on fire when you stay the night for one night, okay, I'm going to catch that and pull out the fire extinguisher pretty quick. Because clearly you're not a firefighter. So look at that. Full round circle, back to the firefighter metaphor. Okay. You're not a good operator. You're not a good frontline worker. You're not a leader in that space. So yeah, with that, I think it is, I don't even really believe in guardrails around that. It's like, here is, if you want to call outcomes and expectations guardrails, then sure, right? But I'm not going to tell you how many meetings to have. I'm not going to tell you how often to interface with your team, how to talk to them, how to give reports. I'm going to say, here's your goal. I need it by this date. Go do it. If you have any problems or questions, here's the path to get it. And I'll just check in with you as we go. But again, I'm here to support the entrepreneurialism of the team, not to tell them how to do something better. Otherwise, why did I hire them if I don't trust that they can execute? Like,
Exactly.
they're a bad fit.
Yeah. They need to grow their decision-making muscles by making decisions.
Yeah, right.
Well, I love that approach. And do you consider worst case, like can the house burn down?
I hope you never let it. I hope I never let it get that far. And I think that's when maybe your grace pushes too far into, like, you're not learning, or like you forgive them for a mistake and that's okay. But biblically we're supposed to forgive 70 times 7, but you're not supposed to like put the 3-year-old behind the driver's seat again, right? So you have to learn. You can forgive, but you have to learn.
And the reason I asked that, Jordo, is to just kind of establish the extent at which you would let someone kind of find their own feet in leadership. That's your approach. Like, it's worth the cost, short-term cost, the little fires, medium size, maybe one large one, like for the sake of helping this person become the leader that you see in them and reach their potential.
You could probably, I'd almost turn that question around to you. I want to hear your thoughts, but I would say, as an addendum to that, people will sense when you're giving them opportunity, and the good people, the A players, will rise to that occasion. And they'll also know that when there's a fire, they're not going to ask you to put it out. They're going to go put it out and then tell you about it and say, here's the damage. Here's my plan to go fix it. That is A player status right there, which is that if you want my help, dude, I'm here anytime, day and night, 24/7. I will help you to put out fires if you need. But my expectation is that you are the one owning it and you solve it, and don't tell me about it until you're completely stuck and you can't deal with it. I don't know, Andy, like how do you fix that, deal with that?
No, I agree with that. I worked with and had people who, I'd say, and maybe I don't know if that's just me, the majority of people aren't these A players that you're describing. And I think sometimes I catch that early. And so they never get to the point where I give full autonomy. It just seems to be rare. And we can discuss this openly. Is it because they just don't have the potential to be A players? Like, if you break it down, what is it that makes somebody an A player? And can they know they're not one? Can a non-A player know they're not one and chart a path to become one? Like,
gosh, I think it goes back to like, are all entrepreneurs born that way? I would say that all A players are born that way for sure. And I think you will sense you'll sense the skill set and the value and the sentiment as like early signs of evidence. For an A player, you'll sense those things early. But sometimes, again, that can also be like bravado, right? Like I have made the mistake of, like, back in my previous company, hired on this guy who's going to be like a sales manager of the whole thing, and puffed his chest up enough, and he had actually done some things with us on like a little contract basis. I'm like, hey, like, here's this opportunity. Do you want to jump in? It was like base salary plus commission or whatever. He could earn a ton of cash. And instead he did like a couple things that gave him full autonomy. Like, go build this program. I trust that you've already done it. And, based on our conversations, And instead he ended up running with a bunch of the money. So he like took the salary and just like logged out of everything and left. It was
Wow.
one of the most bizarre things ever. I think we came to terms like a year after that or something like that. But certainly that's an example of how things can really burn. And I would say that that individual still is an A player, but he's not an entrepreneur. Like he's not a team player. To I here's the thing, and I talked to a lot of friends who are like in transition. They're like trying to launch a new business, or they're like wanting to like build a company, or they want to go work for somebody, or like they're in the state of flux. And anytime that someone is like getting a job, trying to get, lots of people have consulted with me about that. Like, hey, is this pay scale? Should I also do a side gig to try to make more money? I'm like, if you want to be an A player and you want to deserve the payment that you are getting in exchange for you helping someone else to achieve a goal. If your first question is, should I be doing like a side quest in this challenge? Like before you even take the job, you're already on the wrong footing. Your number one goal is to make the person who is paying you money to help you, to bring you and trust you into an organization and even giving you some power and autonomy to go bring this vision to life. And you're thinking about a side quest? Really, bro? Like those people, I think, will build a reputation of that. And it's like the worst possible mindset. It's also like why the highest paid people in any of my organizations are always going to be the ones that are fighting to get further in, not like 1 foot out and side quest something, right?
Yeah.
Um, Again, I think you might have thoughts that are better than mine on that. That's a tough one.
No, no, yeah. No, no, I agree. I I want to be optimistic about this, and I want to believe that everyone can be. It's like personality traits. My belief, and I've studied this, is um, that personality traits, we develop them at a very, very young age because it's our survival mechanism. It's what we need to survive in this world. It's what we're taught to survive. So, introverted, extroverted, sense of feeling, etc., those type of things. I think there's a certain level, like you do that and you embody those things, and then as you mature, as you grow older, people see them more because you can do more things, you interact with more people. But it's kind of set in you as a child. Um, so can you change your personality? Technically, yes. It's not impossible. It's highly improbable because to do that, you have to be so conscious of everything that's running your thought patterns, so
Yeah.
conscious of your underlying motivations that's driving the thoughts that then drives your decision, that drives your behavior. Like that is a mammoth undertaking. You mentioned padlocks on a chain. This is like trillion padlocks, trillion layers of an onion to peel. So while technically possible, highly improbable. So I think with the A player thing, and that's exactly what you mentioned there, the fact that someone says, I want to start a new business, but then asks, or shall I do this other thing? It's like you're seeing that. The very fact that you're asking that shows that you haven't quite got it.
You didn't
But
unlock yet.
how do you reveal to that person that, are they aware enough to step outside of themselves and to see themselves through the eyes that you just saw them through your eyes? That thing, right? And can't answer that. I think everyone's different in that regard. Everyone's on their own journey with self-awareness. Some people care more about it. Some people are more curious than others. Other people just kind of, I think they just operate in a kind of reflex mode for the majority of their life, just running automatic patterns that have been put in place since they were a child, and they just don't even know it. That- that's my, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that.
Well, I love the phrase that you can't read the label of the bottle you're in.
Yep.
So sometimes it really just does require someone to reach out, or like to say what maybe no one else will say. And like I think the most valuable relationships I have is the people that I can trust to not be a total, you know, jerk about it or whatever, but can call me out on something in a loving way, right? And so I think that's
Absolutely.
also the character of being an A player, is like the willingness to embrace correction. And like there are even people that I know that are older than me or whatever, and like for whatever reason, I'm in a position to give them like some feedback. You give them feedback and they don't accept that because maybe you're younger or or for whatever reason that might be. I know instantly they're not an A player, right? Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
those are things that can change. They choose not to. So it's hard to
Yeah.
distinguish between what they could be changing to improve or what they're unwilling to do.
That's true. That's true. The willingness versus the can't, the blind spot versus, well, you're just choosing at this point. It's not even a blind spot. You know it and you're still choosing it. It's interesting. Jordo, and I've left it all the way till now to ask you this question. What is the definition of leadership in your eyes?
I can only draw from examples through history that I think were good leaders. I think there's probably two actual definitions on the far parabolic spectrum of dictator all the way to Jesus figure, right? Like servant leader. I'd obviously gravitate more towards that side. I think there is a bit of a dictatorial element of every leader that like you need to be willing to call shots and just tell people what to do, especially in the early stages of anything that you're building. You have to be dictatorial and you're just going to, there's too many decisions that you have to make too quickly in early stages of anything that there's no room for opinions or committee decision making. They call like the camel is a horse designed by a committee. So like you can't have camels too early. It's gonna bring everything down. So, but the version that I like best, I think the one that I want to emulate most is further down the spectrum of like the servant leader, where I'm only going to be dictatorial when I absolutely must, give grace as often as I can, but to serve the team and my clients as the janitor. Really, I think most people will maybe thrive faster, but I don't think thrive longer without a janitorial willingness. It doesn't mean you're actually scrubbing the toilets. It means that you're willing to, if it comes down to it, like the willingness to do almost anything, or to solve any problem. And when you're at the top, you're really just at the bottom of it's not a pyramid. It's just a big circle, right? And so when you are at the top, your customers are right on top of you, right? Or whatever that is, or the janitor's right on top of you. So servant leadership is, I think, probably the best definition. But I also listen a lot to like the Craig Rochelle leadership podcast. And I like some of the stuff that Dave Ramsey talks about with entre leadership. And I got some like leadership books here as well. But what I see as a common thread through all leaders is the nature of like working through a framework and a belief system, like a structure. It's like, this is who we are and the pillars of what it is that you do. So this is who we are, our identity. And we're going to make pillars of choices that this is what we do. To reiterate that throughout your organization is probably the number one job of a leader, is to exemplify who we are and then what we do. Probably I'll leave this as a short version, but in the book Entre Leadership by Dave Ramsey, talks about like one employee who got like super sick with cancer. They had no like good health, or health insurance wouldn't cover it or whatever it was. And the Ramsey, organization covered all of her bills and paid her full salary for like a year or two or something like that. And had this whole big like meal situation to take care of them and their family. And I'm like, that's pretty dang cool, man. And it's like, you're not even really doing it for that person. You are directly, but Jesus said, if you did it for them, he did it for me. So you're serving such a nobler purpose. And everyone around you, dude, everyone sees that. Do you know how long your employee retention just boosted by you doing that? Not because they think they're going to get that, but because you're exemplifying the values that they were signing up for in the first place. They came in to join you in this. And that's like probably the first thing that should be discussed in interviews is like this, who we are, what we do. I was just at a mastermind event and Tim Tebow was speaking, and he talked about that. He's like, the only thing that matters, so like in our final interviews, we just talk about, here's who we are. And he rattles it off. He has the whole thing memorized about who they are and what they do. And he rattles that off, and it's like pretty hardcore. And it's like, I realized listening to that, I don't align with those with those things. I just don't, or like I don't believe in it that much. So I'm not a good fit for his organization. But there are people that will. So it's almost like finding your ideal client profile. It's like your ICP. You should have an IEP, which is like an ideal employee profile. What is it? Do they align with who you are and with what you do? And then you exemplify that every day, and you reiterate it on your not your sales calls, your team calls, your internal communications. And what we do in Slack is we have this little thing called Hey Taco. So we give out tacos when people are exemplifying what it is that we believe in our. So a couple ideas there.
Yeah, no, I think that's so key, Jordo. And I think so many leaders, higher ups or business owners, forget how much they actually have to keep reiterating the values, the principles. It's as if something, I only need to say it once or twice a year or once a quarter. No, you have to keep saying it, and then you have to keep doing it. And you have to connect the saying to the doing so that people understand what it is that you're actually doing, and they can put a label to it, and then they can replicate it, reproduce it, right? And yeah, that culture, I mean, that's absolute must, right? So for a solid foundation for an organization to know what their identity is, which is made up of the people. Yeah, I love that. That's really good. Jordo, a couple more things here. What advice would you give to aspiring leaders?
Gosh, just start leading. It means like being in even if you aren't the leader of an organization now, or you don't have employees or any of that, you have friend groups, right? Like you're going to start to see some of those gifts come out. I'd say like probably first is like identify the type of leader you want to be. Do you want to be dictatorial, narcissistic, that side, maybe a little bit less than that, maybe less than that? Do you want to be full on servant leader? Where do you want to be in the spectrum, and identify that and what characteristic that requires from you, and then start exemplifying that throughout your life. Studying leadership books sounds really freaking boring, but it's really good. Like there's a lot of good stuff out there. Even do the audiobook or whatever, but start to study leadership, and start to think about like how these people think, because in many cases, like the leaders, they're the visionaries. They're the ones creating this new world. And so if you're imaginative in that way, people are going to want to follow along with you on that challenge and that adventure. They want to join you in that. And so you're going to start to see people naturally gravitate towards you and want to plug into what it is that you're doing. Even your customers can become your employees or your team members. That's happened with us many times. They become a customer and they're like, I just love what you're doing. How can I plug in? How can I like work with you? Right. That's how you know that you're kind of a natural born leader, or what we should refer to here as the instant leader. So studying, identifying who it is that you are, and then just start exemplifying that throughout your life with your family, your friends, even at work, or and you'll start to kind of it's almost like a game. You can knowingly be practicing these new versions of your identity without no one else knows what you're doing, right? Sometimes I'll play a little, like I'll practice my sales skills on like friends when we're having conversations, and I'll do like mirroring back and forth. Like they'll say something, then you ask the same part as a question, just to mirror back like their energy and that kind of thing. They don't even know what's going on. And then if they catch you, you know that you got caught, right? So people shouldn't catch you. They're like, are you mirroring me? Right? So the game is to not let them catch you. But the same thing is true with like leadership. People will be like, are you just like trying to lead this? Are you just trying to take control? That's where you lost the game. The game is to start to practice these elements without them catching you, and just watch what happens, to be this kind of like step back. When I plug in this new element, this new version of me leading a situation, what happened? Did people like that? Did they respond to it? Did they smile when I did that? Because there's this version of leadership that they were looking for in the first place.
Yeah.
Running that as an experiment is I think the best advice.
Yeah. And because there were so many opportunities to do that. If you go on holiday somewhere, go to a new town, new city, you can walk into a restaurant and just be someone else. Like they don't know who you are, so they're not going to think you're being weird. You just practice, right? And then that is the key, because you can read the books and read the theory, but you don't know it until you do it. Yeah, right. And that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Great. Jordo, thank you so much. One final question here. If listeners remember just one thing, from this episode? What do you hope it is?
You can't take any of this with you. So you are a steward. You are being given as a steward various assets, and it failing, again, like you can control what you can control. Failure is not the element of not being a good steward, because a good steward is going to go try, right, and go do what the master has asked him to do, and not to just hide it, because I think everyone has gifts. People here listening might not be stepping into their leadership that they know that they're called to, and hopefully this is a kick in the pants, but leadership is an asset. It is a gift that you are given, and if you don't, the earthly version of that is if you don't use it, you lose it. But in a different realm, if you squander assets and those gifts, it will be taken from you, right? It will not be, and those who have will be given more, and those who don't, more will be taken away, right? There's this element of hiding gifts and hiding who you are, and being the crab that never molts its shell, right? It never becomes vulnerable to grow into this next version. They just die. So that gift dies, and that part of you dies. And I'm a deep believer in that, right? So yeah, I'd say you can't take it with you. So you may as well steward assets well, reap the rewards of doing the hard work, to sacrifice, and then just watch as you continue to grow. You just see people around you changing, people becoming more like you in a way, because you're exuding quality assets. Seeing people get magnetized to you and to your energy. And so you have this time now, you got this one opportunity. So I'm preaching to myself when I say, seize it and do the very best you can, even in the face of rejection and adversity and all these things that we've talked about here, in a full circle way, being that servant leader and stewarding assets, I think is the best thing you can do while we have this time.
Yeah. What a lovely end that is, Jordo. And that's something you've been doing since apparently the age of 8, if not earlier. So such a great episode, Jordo. Thank you for giving your time, sharing your wisdom and experience. I know that the viewers and listeners are going to get so much value from this. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Andy. I'm anytime. You're top of the list in my book. So whatever you need, you call me.
Thanks. I'll pay you for that quote later. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Instant Leader. If this episode helped, please follow the show and leave a quick review. It really helps others find us. For practical resources and to join the community, head to theinstantleader.com. I'm Andy Lee. See you next time.